I thought it would be less. I thought it would be less scary the second time doing this, but it's just as scary as the first time. Okay, so welcome, Sancha Nerds. If you're a future person, why don't you go ahead and skip to like 5 minutes, and then I'll get started. So if you're live, welcome. So this is my second live stream. Today we're going to be talking about finals week. So in my university, it's week 10, so that means finals week is next week. So I thought, maybe take this opportunity to do this live stream for y'all. I don't want to get started yet, just in case some people want to show up. So skip to like 5 minutes. Still nerve-wracking, to be honest. How y'all doing? I don't think anyone's watching, but it's still so nerve-wracking. Like, feels like the whole world is on my eyes right now. Got my notes. Got my notebook. Talk about notes. Low-key kind of awkward. Oh, hello. There are a few people. Okay. Hello, welcome. Sorry for the awkward silence. I'm gonna start at 5 minutes. All right. How y'all doing? Can you guys comment? How y'all doing? Are you guys nervous for finals or not so nervous? You kind of got it. This is so awkward. Yo, my dude, hey, how's it going? Okay, so I'm not just talking to a screen. As you can tell, I'm excited, but still not quite getting the hang of this. Hopefully I will. I think it's easier for me to edit videos because if I mess up, I can just, edit it out or redo it. But here, it's live. So we'll see how it's going. Ochem is definitely scarier than I thought it'd be. So you're like the fifth person that's taking Ochem that says that Ochem is like kind of tough. And usually with Ochem, is notoriously difficult. People say like, oh, Ochem is like this hardest class. It really, really depends, in my opinion, on the professor and like what kind of class you're taking it. But hopefully these tips might help you out. Yeah, Ochem can be a little bit weird. It's not my favorite class. It's just kind of like too much memorizing for me. Engineering is just not a lot of memorizing, but Ochem is just a lot of memorizing. Too much for me. Yeah, but I'll give some tips in a minute and a half. Hello, welcome. Yeah, sorry again for the awkward silence. Like I said, I'm gonna wait till 5 minutes just in case some people show up, which people are showing up, which is different than last time. So that's interesting. Probably because last time I didn't advertise that I would be going live, and I would just see which of my subscribers would go until like a minute before I went live. Yeah. Other than that, are y'all excited to be done academically with 2018? Almost done? It's kind of weird because like I'm asking a question and you're responding, but like a few seconds later. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah. I don't know if I'm like stress drinking water or like I'm actually like thirsty. Not like stressed, but like kind of nervous. I put this like away, so I have to reach for it if I'm actually thirsty. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Hello, everyone. So hello, future people, and hello to my 2 live streamers. Thank you for joining me. So this is Engineering. My name is Engineering, and basically today we'll be talking about finals tips. So finals, basically, it can be like an okay time, or it can be like a super, super stressful time for y'all students in college and undergrad university. And I know how it goes. So basically, I'm going to be just making this video, this live stream, to kind of talk about basically like some tips, yeah. And really a good student, quote, what is a good student really, would really want to kind of prepare during the semester, during the quarter, so that they don't not too stressed during finals week. But I'm not going to be talking about study tips during the quarter because in our current moment, it's almost finals. So I'm going to assume that, you did what you did during this quarter. Maybe you're doing all right. Maybe you might be a little stressed. But I'm going to be kind of talking about, okay, finals are coming up. What should I do? All right. So I got my notes. Hope it's all right that I refer to them. So basically, the way I see it, finals week is just this mind game, basically. They have to kind of learn how to play with the system. So, in universities, it's required to have exams. And in my opinion, I don't want to get too controversial, but in my opinion, I don't think finals are the best way to gauge a student's understanding. I'm more of a fan of like projects, like hands-on things and presentations. But I'm not going to talk about that. But yeah, basically, final exams, you might be taking 4 classes, you might have 4 or 5 finals. So I know how it goes. And basically, I think that finals week can be boiled down to, 3 things about timing, time management. How do you manage your time? And what are you going to do throughout the day? Mental health and stress management. If you got stress, how are you going to deal with that? Because that's going to affect your studies. And psychology. So using motivation and different, psychology tips to kind of help you get through the day. And finally, I'll talk about more traditional like finals week study tips that, in my opinion, they're not really the best because, you hear them everywhere, but I'm going to discuss them anyway. Okay, so starting out with time management, I think that's probably one of the key things, time management. So, everyone's different. Everyone has their own schedules, but basically you want to do your own method of managing your time. So maybe you have an agenda, you have a calendar, it might be digital, it might be pen and paper. It's totally up to you. But when it comes to finals week, you might want to consider adjusting how you manage your time. So if you just do it weekly, maybe you want to do it daily. What I did, again, this is just for me, this doesn't have to be for everyone. What I did, especially when I'm really stressed, I laid out hour by hour what my plan or what my goals were. I never went through with it. It's impossible to really go hour by hour what your plan is. But the fact that you lay out hour by hour, okay, 8 a.m. I'm gonna wake up. If you wake up that early, then I'm gonna have breakfast, maybe work out a little bit, and then I'm gonna go to the library for 4 hours. Then I'm gonna have lunch, and oh, hello, mother. Doing a live stream. So I'm talking about time management. So yeah, you want to lay out, have breakfast, lunch, study for a few hours. Make sure, I think it's important to lay out, like breaks and stuff like that. But time management, I think, is very important. And not only managing your time, but managing what you have to do. So think about what you have to study, and I have to study this chapter, these notes, this lecture, this homework, and you have a to-do list. So if you're, a week before finals, okay, I have 5 days to learn 10 chapters. So you do the math, that's 2 chapters a day. So that means I gotta study 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. Just manage your time as best as you see fit. If you think you're more comfortable, then you don't have to manage so much. But if you're kind of stressed, then I recommend doing hour by hour and laying out for the entire week, for the entire finals week. Okay, so another thing with time management, I think it's important to, if possible, say no to other responsibilities. So if you're involved in organizations, if you have a job, if you're in research, things like that, if you can, say, hey, I'm going to take the next couple days off. I understand that's not possible for everyone, but in regards to time management, I think that's one of the most helpful things. So if you can, try to take a few days off from work or your other main responsibilities, if you need it. But in my opinion, academics are more important than other other responsibilities. So when I was an undergrad, I tried to not attend my professional organization meetings, and I just wanted to focus on my studies. I know it's difficult because if you have a job, they're probably not so lenient, but if possible, then that's always a good help. So next thing, mental health. I think mental health is something that's like kind of the dodgy subject. There's no way I'm going to claim I'm an expert on the subject, but a couple little tidbits. Basically, you want to get sleep, because if you don't have sleep, how are you going to retain the information that you're studying? If you're studying for 6 hours, then there's no way that you're going to remember it if you're sleep deprived. And taking breaks. So similarly, if you're studying for 6-10 hours or whatever straight, how are you going to deal with that and let your brain rest? It's funny that my mom's watching this because she always tells me that I need to sleep, and sometimes I sacrifice sleep for my studies. But try to, like I said, manage your time and basically just consider your mental health over academics, because my mom always says, at the end of the day, your body is your mind. That's kind of more important than a grade, your GPA or a piece of paper. Like I said, I'm no expert in mental health. I don't want to tell you what to do, what you can't do, but basically just try to allocate time for sleep. If you can, try to allocate time for working out. This mental health thing and this time management thing, they kind of go hand in hand. So you can allocate time for studies, sleeping, fun, leisure, de-stressing, because finals week is just typically just this stressful time, and it might not be fun for everyone, i.e. it's not really fun for anyone at all. And lastly, psychology for the 3 main tips. Psychology, basically in regards to motivation, and kind of the same thing with mental health. I really like this one video on YouTube by a professor at Pierce College, which is basically talking about the psychology and like different tips for studying. And I'll probably put a link in the description after this, but there's this one graph where you observe your mental health over time, not your mental health, your mental capacity over time. And if you're studying for like an hour, you're going to retain most of it. But as the time goes on, you're just going to have less and less retention. So basically what that means is if you study for 1 hour a day for 6 days, that's much, much better than studying for 6 hours the day before the final. That being said, you might not have time to do that 1 hour a day, or you might have to allocate time rather 1 hour a day for a week rather than 6 hours right before the final. Make sense? Easier said than done, because you have all these responsibilities, you have 4 finals, you have this project, you have all these kinds of things. So the reason I wanted to talk about psychology is because all 3 of these things tie together. Timing, mental health, and psychology. They're all this big jumble of things that you have to manage during finals week. Yeah, basically, if you have to manage your time, which is the first point, think about how to allocate time for your mental health so that you can spend 1 hour a day studying for one class rather than 6 hours a day the night before. As an example, typically for me, I could never study for just 6 hours. I would have to study for several hours a day for weeks before the final. So again, that kind of goes to basically, like I said, everything all together, just managing your time. And rather than, studying for 6 hours straight, take breaks. Have you heard of the Pomodoro Method? I'm going to say it in case you've never heard of it, but kind of what people do is they set their alarm for 30 minutes. They study for 30 minutes straight, no distractions, and then they take a 5-minute break. And then they go again for another 30 minutes, another 5-minute break. You do that for a few hours, you go have food, go work out, go do whatever, go de-stress. And you just kind of do that, iterate throughout the day and throughout the week. So again, I think, like I said, timing is just like this whole key for this mind game of finals week. So just in regards to like all three of these, like iterating, thinking about what you have to do today, how much time you have to do it, and how long is it going to take. Another thing about motivation and psychology is finals week means it's the last week, right? So that's the light at the end of the tunnel. You might be in this like super stressful rut, like, oh man, I got like 3 days of no sleep and I have 5 finals and labs and projects and presentations. But at the end of the day, at the end of the week rather, you can sleep, you can de-stress, go have, dinner with friends or whatever you want to do, play video games. I don't know what you want to do. But just think of that as your motivation. When you have, that piece of chocolate on the string, it makes you want to just keep running forward. Do you know what analogy I'm talking about when you're like working out and you have that like piece of chocolate on a string? So just kind of keep that in your mind because, finals might seem like forever, but it's usually only a week. Okay, so those are the 3 main things that I think kind of go hand in hand with each other. Like I said, the timing, the psychology, and the the mental health. Okay, because you're kind of just dealing with this own game. And I know these are very general, so I'm hoping that they're not like too general. So I'm going to kind of go into more specific study tips. All right, and since this is engineering, I'm going to focus on STEM-based classes. And I couldn't think of a better way to do this than just kind of talk about what I did per class. Starting with my freshman classes, they're all quite similar with respect to each other compared to my upper div. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that chem, calculus, physics, they're quite laid out throughout the quarter. So, they give homework, they give lectures, you go to discussion, kind of like, it's quite laid out. Whereas in upper divs, it's kind of more individual. It's kind of more, it's not so laid out. You kind of have to be more independent during upper divs. So in that regards, freshman classes are easier to study for finals, but at the end of the day, it really, really depends on who's your professor, what kind of exams you have, what kind of class you're taking. So take this with a grain of salt. But basically for freshman classes, chem, calc, physics, usually you want to just kind of look over your homework, look over your notes, look over discussion problems, look over practice problems, textbook problems, basically problems, everything all about problems. I have tons of videos on just problems, like what kind of problems to do. You just got to do problems. If they say like, oh, this is going to be on your final, it's probably going to be on your final. If you go to discussion, they go over practice problems, and you saw them on the midterm, they're probably going to be similar on the final. Other professors don't put anything from the midterms on the finals, but most of them in freshman classes try to take bits and pieces from the first midterm or so, and from past discussions and past quizzes and past homeworks, and they change one little number, and boom, it shows up on the final. So make sure you really, really understand what's on your midterms and homeworks and previous examples and the such. And usually, especially for math classes, if they give you a sample final, that is your gold mine. That's definitely going to be similar, if not more difficult than what's going to be in your actual final. So if you're thinking, oh man, this is too difficult, I don't know if I can do this, then I recommend you try to chug it out because it's probably going to be that difficult on your final. And usually professors try to give like slightly harder sample finals than their actual finals, but usually that's not always the case, and it's almost just as difficult as the actual final. So it's a pretty good gauge to see your understanding of how well you're doing. And then what you want to study for those is you get your sample final, you print it out, and you simulate the same exposure you'll have on the final. So if you have a sample final, 3 hours, you go to the library, you put everything away, you don't talk to anyone, and you just say, okay, and you put your alarm, you have 3 hours to complete this. If you're allowed to use your calculator, then use the same calculator you're allowed to use. If you're not allowed to use your calculator, then don't use that as a crutch during the final, during studying. And you just try to study. It might be a little challenging because it's the first time you're looking at it, but just go through with it anyway. Don't stop to study. Don't look back at anything. Just simulate your actual final experience. And then once you're done, hopefully you can look it over and check your answers, look back to your notes and try to see which ones are right and which ones are wrong. And iterate. Basically, if you get all of them right, then you're done. I mean, you might want to review a little bit, but whatever you get wrong, you want to iterate, and you want to see, okay, I got this step right and this step wrong. Okay, let me go back to it. Okay, I got it. The next day, you forget about it. You do it again, you do the same problem, but you don't look at your notes and see how far you get. If you did it right without looking, then you're good. But if you're still stuck, then kind of like review, try to learn about it, and then put it away. Don't keep looking and looking because you're just going to memorize. And then if you see it again on your final, you might get tripped up. So I definitely recommend trying to understand the formulas, understand the derivations, rather than just memorizing the steps. That's a big, big catastrophic way to handle finals. And yeah, basically, yeah, that's honestly really it. Just looking at problems, redoing them, doing them until like I remember like freshman. I mean, it still happens to me, but like sometimes when I'm studying all day, I go to sleep and then I just see like little integrals in my head, and then I wake up and then I see like chemical reactions I have to balance. And then now it's more like transport equations, like Navier-Stokes and like different equations, like kind of going through my mind, which means like, you know, on the mental health side, that's probably not the best thing because like I might be overstudying, but that's a good gauge. It's an interesting gauge for me because it's like, okay, I studied so much and I can't get it out of my brain. And I still can't get it out of my brain. Now make videos about them. No, but yeah, you know, just kind of like, again, think about your mental health, and you know, at the end of the day, it's just finals. You're gonna get through with it. So here comes the part where I talk about like, okay, if you're failing a class and the final is your last hope to, you know, recover for that, then that's where, you know, when the going gets tough, tough gets going. And have you seen Stand and Deliver, the movie? I think I've got to make a video on Stand and Deliver. It's like my favorite movie. It's all about ganas and just kind of like chugging through when something gets stressful, something gets tough. I mean, everyone manages their own ways, but really, I think ganas is really the way to go. Just chug through it when you have like difficult problems and you're stressed, you think you might fail, but just go through it anyway. If you don't work your hardest, you're gonna regret it. So you might as well just put all your effort into your studies now, because later down the line, you could have said, oh man, if I just studied one more hour, I would have understood that. You never want to say that. You want to say, oh man, I overstudied. That's another thing. I don't even think that overstudying is possible, because you might have learned something that might help you later on. So in regards to, you know, students that are feeling like, oh man, like I'm really stressed, like I don't think I'm gonna make it, just kind of chug through with it anyway. I mean, you want to gauge, maybe it's not the best idea to go with the final anyway, see if you can like opt out of the class if it's not too late. But usually around this time, it might be a little bit too late. So just kind of go through with it anyway, work hard, learn to say no to fun and say yes to like studying. And then there's a light at the end of the tunnel, you know? So if you're done with finals, then that's your motivation. It all goes back. So that's basically what it is for freshman classes. And for the rest of the classes, I'm going to focus on chemical engineering classes. And keep in mind what I already said, which was like doing practice problems. But I'm going to kind of go into a little bit more specific logistics on what you can expect. I hope this isn't considered like cheating. But basically, I'm just going to kind of say like, okay, this is what you might expect. So for chemical process, your intro class, basically you're doing like process diagrams, right? You're doing mass balance, mass in equals mass out, might be doing energy balance if you're at another school, if you're in the semester system. And basically, you're, I mean, I don't think it's cheating to say that you're going to expect to see a giant mass balance problem, and you're just going to have to calculate, you know, either the flow out, the product, some kind of yield, something like that. And basically, the best way to study that is go to the library, get a whiteboard, and go through the problems in the book. That's all it takes. I mean, again, easier said than done, but you just got to do problems. So, you know, go in the back of the textbook, and you're just going to say, I'm going to do 30 through 50 all day. And yeah, that's honestly, that's all I can say. Again, just a reminder, if you're allowed to use cheat sheet, then try to only use your cheat sheet. If you're allowed to use the textbook, then you can refer to the textbook. Again, try to simulate what you're going to see on the exam. So yeah, that's like mass balance and energy balance. And honestly, now I'm actually thirsty. And honestly, that really is the same for pretty much every other engineering class, except for like computer science classes. But yeah, that's what I would say for mass balance and energy balance. Thermo might be a little bit different. And again, take this with a grain of salt because every professor is different, every lecturer is different, every student is different, every university is different. So take this with a grain of salt. But thermo tends to be a little bit more clustery with equations. So it wouldn't be too hurtful to go through some derivations and try to understand like units, dimensional analysis, going through like energy, different types of energy, entropy, first law of thermo, second law of thermo, and then work out problems that you're probably going to see. So for us, whether it's like equilibrium thermodynamics or intro thermodynamics, you might see like a heat exchanger, or no, not heat exchanger, that was like heat transfer. You might see like the Carnot cycle, or calculating the efficiency of an engine, or you might see the refrigeration cycle. So it's really just kind of like expect to see what you've been seeing in class, which makes sense, right? I know sometimes professors like to do Maxwell's equations, which is more theoretical and less engineering-y. So, deriving entropy as a function of blah, 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 or differentiating, Maxwell's equations. In regards to equilibrium thermodynamics, all I can stress is just fugacity. I don't have a playlist on equilibrium thermodynamics yet, but I will. It's all about fugacity, learning equilibria between systems, and kind of applying it to different types of problems. Raoult's law, what's the pressure, what's the temperature. I'll probably have a playlist on just thermo, just because it's like one of the most fundamental classes. And then I'm going to talk about transport. So you got fluids, fluid mechanics, mass transfer, and heat transfer. And although those classes were pretty similar, in my opinion, the finals were all structured quite differently. In fluid mechanics, you're going to see like Bernoulli's. Well, that's probably like earlier stuff. But you might see like Bernoulli's, energy balance, momentum balance for sure, and Navier-Stokes. So you want to write out your momentum balance, your Navier-Stokes. You might have to write it in differential form, or you can write it in terms of components. You might have Cartesian, where you have like flow, like on a book or something, like flow down the book or flow down a metal plate, or you might have like flow through a cylinder, and you write out your equations, you state your knowns, you state your assumptions, and then you cancel out stuff. Again, I'm gonna like do a playlist. I started a fluids playlist, and I'm gonna like continue making some fluids videos. But yeah, just kind of some logistics on what to expect. You might have calculations, like you might have to actually use a calculator to calculate, or you might just have like derivations, like derive the velocity profile for the fluid on a plate or something like that. Again, I hope I really hope I'm not cheating by like saying this, but it's just like standard, stuff that you learn in class, right? Mass transfer and heat transfer. So mass transfer, very similarly, you might see, develop the concentration profile, but your equations might be a little bit different. And the thing about mass transfer is that it uses concentration, whereas, in fluid mechanics, you see stress. So stress is a tensor, whereas you see other vectors and scalar quantities in mass transfer. So what I'm trying to say is that the math probably won't be as complicated, but you might have some differential equations. So you might have to review some calculus. So like I remember seeing like integrating factor on my, I think I saw it on my homework. Different methods for solving differential equations. And heat transfer, it's again, very similarly, you might have some kind of system, definitely going to be like heat exchangers. So like writing out your, like mass balance, energy balance, it all goes back to mass balance and energy balance. I'm like kind of like hesitant with my words because I don't want to like give away too much, and then like 3 years from now, my professor's gonna be like, "You cheated by giving away the answers." Well, I don't know what's gonna be on the final. So for computational classes, yeah, again, it really depends. So sometimes I've seen where you kind of have to like write a little bit of code on the piece of paper, and kind of like, oh, write a function to solve this. Or and on other exams, like I had one exam where I had to actually use Matlab to solve a thermodynamic problem, which is like a system of equations. And that was fun, but it was quite challenging. So expect that. Or it might be more on the theoretical side, like deriving, or not even deriving, just like observing Newton's method or different numerical methods if you're taking that class. Separations, so if you're taking separation processes, that's more like you're going to see distillation, absorption. You might have tertiary, what are they called? Tertiary diagrams, ternary diagrams of systems at equilibria. So again, mass balance, energy balance. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. And then process control, senior year. Process control, definitely expect like PIDs, proportional integral derivatives, and again, mass balance, energy balance. That's all I can say for chemical engineering. It's literally all just mass balance and energy balance throughout the entire 3 years or so of undergrad. And that being said, that's pretty much all the logistics from the intro stuff for like freshmen or like general college to more science classes, calculus. Oh, and OChem. I skipped OChem because like I don't really like OChem. It's okay. So OChem, again, it really depends on the professor, the everything. Like I said, really depends. But you might expect to see mechanisms. Like I can't tell you what to expect because some professors really like mechanisms and some professors really like synthesis without mechanisms. So, but 9 times out of 10, you're gonna have some reactant and you have some product, and they're gonna say, okay, develop synthesis to get to here. There's no way I would remember, like, I don't know, start with like ethanol to obtain. I really don't remember. I'm not, to be honest, OChem is not my strong suit. But definitely like synthesis. And others might say, what is the mechanism for this reaction? So definitely focus on mechanisms and synthesis. So that means going back to your notes, memorizing the mechanisms, not memorizing per se, but really understanding, when something attaches to something else or when something blocks something else, or, and you got to think about like steric hindrance and different things like that. And then you might do some other things like characterization. You might see like IR, UV vis. What else did I do in OChem? Those are the main ones, right? Infrared, spectroscopy, and NMR and HNMR. So you might have like some characterization that you might have to analyze. And yeah, really throughout all of OChem, it's really all just mechanisms, just like chugging through the mechanisms and seeing like what goes to what, and yeah, and solving like some kind of synthesis. Okay, I think we did a lot today. We talked about what I think, in my opinion, are like 3 vital things for finals week: timing, mental health, and psychology. And then we talked about some like general study tips, like doing problems and redoing problems. Then we talked about some study tips that might apply to freshman classes like chemistry, physics, and what was it, calc? And then I talked about like what I saw throughout my chemical engineering finals. You notice I don't really talk about like science classes. Like I didn't talk about biology. I didn't talk about like humanities classes because I don't know. I guess first of all, like I'm not really a fan of those finals because it's like a lot of memorizing. It's not a lot of application. Again, I don't really think it's the best way to gauge someone's understanding. But the way I see like biology and things like that is just like a lot of memorizing. If you're okay, I guess I could talk about like English or history or something. It's probably gonna be like writing a paper in class on like some kind of book you've been reading or whatever. There's not really much I want to say about that. Again, it's like kind of controversial in my opinion because I don't think exams are really the best way to see if someone understands something. I think it's more like, yeah, like projects and like presentations. Anyway, I think I'm gonna call it for here. I hope this helped. And if you're a freshman, wow, good luck on probably your first set of finals, right? If you're like a senior, then almost done. Yeah, this is the first time. So I'm in grad school, and this is the first time that I don't have final exams. I do have other things like what I talk about. Like I have presentations, I have projects, I have papers to write. So I don't have final exams, which is dope because like I'm actually learning, but I'm not like insanely stressed about some kind of exam that's gonna determine my future. Air quotes. Exams don't determine your future. I think I'm gonna end it on this one. Exams don't determine your future. I recommend you lay out. You can calculate. You like make an Excel. Maybe I'll make a video on how to do this. Make an Excel to calculate like a pie graph of your grades, and see you can calculate what you need to get what grade. But at the end of the day, try to think of it in the grand scheme of things. You know, you're so stressed about one grade, and you're like stressed about like A minus, B, B minus C, C minus D, D minus F. But one tiny little grade is just one little point out of your entire GPA. By the time you graduate, you might have hundreds of points in your entire GPA. So one A minus or one B minus or one C minus compared to a C, or even a C plus or B minus, like one tiny little grade is not going to determine, it's not even going to change your GPA by the slightest. Yeah, you want to focus on like, on getting the best grades that you can, but people are so stressed about getting like just the tiniest little point. That tiny little point isn't going to affect your GPA in the grand scheme of things. And additionally, GPA in general isn't really going to affect your life in the grand scheme of things either. I don't want to get into this right now because it's like not everyone agrees with this and people think that grades are like the most important thing ever. But at the end of the day, just like don't stress, focus on yourself, focus on mental health, motivation, all that stuff. Mass balance, energy balance, OChem synthesis, and just do problems until like your head spins around. All right, that's all I'm gonna say. Good luck. Go get him, Tiger from Spider-Man. What's her name? Mary J. Good luck. And don't forget to share this with your friends, family, and your dog.